Is Argos Odyssey The Legend Returns any good? Today I'm going to go over that. We're going to talk about the presentation, the launch event for this fragrance, and we're going to talk about how it smells and whether it's a good fragrance that you should pick up or not. So this is going to be a full-on review, not just a first impressions, because I wanted to wear it for a few weeks and really get a sense of how the fragrance performs, how it smells, and really understand the fragrance more than just smelling it for the first time on a tester strip. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I was able to attend a launch event for Argos Odyssey, The Legend Returns that was held at House of Dubai in Chicago. I live in Indiana a few hours away, so when I saw Argos posted about the event, I knew I had to go to it. It was an amazing event. I got my box signed by Christian Petrovich himself, and I was able to talk with him for a few minutes about the fragrance and about Argos, and that was a lot of fun. He's a really nice guy and clearly a great perfumer. He makes some amazing stuff. So a little bit about the launch event at the House of Dubai. It was great. Basically, Christian gave a little bit of a speech to everybody, talked about the fragrance, but it was mostly him taking the time to sign bottles, take photos with people, and then answer any questions that people had about the fragrance or Argos in general. So when it was my time to go up and chat with him and get my box signed, I had one very important question to ask him, and that was whether he planned the launch of this fragrance around the new Odyssey movie by Christopher Nolan. And if you're not aware, Christopher Nolan is probably one of the best film directors of our time. A lot of people love his movies, and me as a film nerd, I'm super excited about the Odyssey movie from Christopher Nolan, so hopefully that is as good as this fragrance. And when I asked Christian about the fragrance and if he planned them at the same time, he told me that yes, that was something that he thought of, which I thought was pretty cool. Basically, he said that each fragrance takes around 2 years to conceptualize and go through making the notes and formulating the fragrance, and then make sure it's approved for safety and stuff like that. So that whole process takes about 2 years. And about 2 years ago, when he heard the announcement of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, his gears started working and he started coming up with this fragrance, which is really cool. So I thought that was fun, and I asked him a few other questions. He was a great guy, really nice, and it was a super fun event there at the House of Dubai. So if you're one of the people that got to go to that, I'm sure you had a great time as well. But let's go ahead and get into the fragrance, because that's why we're all here, right? So to start off with the beautiful presentation, Argos always kills it with their presentation, so I got my bottle signed, of course, at that event. And then inside there we see the beautiful artwork of the bottle there, and of course the notes, which is great, and the story. Love that they always add that in the box. So we'll get the fragrance out of here so you can get a closer look at the bottle itself. So this is the beautiful artwork, and I think this is honestly one of the coolest plates that they have on an Argos bottle. I think probably tied with this one for me is the Sacred Flame one, and maybe Heron's Veil. That one's also really good. I like the plates on both of those. Also, Jupiter's Lightning is pretty cool, but I'd say top three probably this new one, Karen's Veil, and Sacred Flame are some of the best plates that they have. Always love the artwork and attention to detail on the Argos bottles. It's always really, really neat, and it just adds to the fragrance being a whole experience more than just something that smells good. So like I said, this is going to be a full-on review of the fragrance and not just a first impressions. I have smelled it before, and I've worn it multiple times over the past week and a half or so to really get a sense of what this fragrance is all about. So as it tells us on the handy dandy box here, the top notes are bergamot, lemon, and clary sage. The heart notes are orange blossom, tuberose, lily of the valley, and the base notes are guaiac wood, vetiver, musk, and vanilla. So let's go ahead and get this on a tester strip. So I have one of the fancy Argos tester strips here that I haven't used yet. So let's go ahead and get that. Great atomizers as well. Ooh. I love this fragrance. It's really just a great fragrance. So right on the opening there, what sticks out to me is a little bit of citrus from the lemon, but I mostly get the sage from the top, but really what comes out immediately is the white florals. The white florals in this fragrance are screaming, and it's the main part of the fragrance is the white florals. But when you first spray it, you can get the hint of lemon and that little bit of sage in there, which kind of makes it a little softer and a feeling of home or the beginning of the journey. One thing that Christian really emphasized on this fragrance is that it's about the journey, just like the journey of Odysseus. And so that lemon and that sage really, for me, kind of makes me think of him being at home right before going out on this 20-year epic journey that he goes on. Now moving on to the middle notes, we have white florals. So we have tuberose, orange blossom, and lily of the valley. Now Christian talks about this fragrance being like a journey, so you can kind of see those white florals as representing the temptation that Odysseus faces throughout the journey, which I can see in a sense, but I know a lot of people, when looking at this fragrance, when looking at the bottle, especially with that kind of like ocean around him, around Odysseus, they were expecting kind of a fresh aquatic fragrance that this isn't like. Everyone was expecting it to be that fresh aquatic fragrance kind of because of that art there, and also, quite frankly, Argos doesn't have very many fresh fragrances. Really, the only ones are Jupiter's Lightning and Neptune's Trident. But I don't really care. I've seen online that there's a few people that don't really like that it wasn't a fresh, aquatic fragrance. And I personally don't care because I love this fragrance. I love white florals, and I love the idea of it being like a journey. And I see that especially in these florals and in that sage down to the florals and then down to the vanilla and the gaiac wood and the vetiver that you see in the base. So I just sprayed this one here on camera, but I also a little while ago sprayed this tester strip a couple hours ago, which, yeah, I can see a difference there. It's still very white floral heavy, but the wood is coming out and the vanilla is coming out, especially the vanilla. Gaiac wood is actually a kind of a creamier wood, and so it makes sense that the vanilla is kind of overpowering because you could almost sense a little bit of vanilla within Gaiac wood. And the woodiness I smell is kind of the vetiver, because vetiver to me I feel like is a bit of a brighter woody smell, and this doesn't feel like a really deep base. It smells kind of bright, and I think that vetiver and that vanilla is kind of what makes it a creamy, bright base. But going back to the star of the show, those middle notes, the florals, the white florals, they smell beautiful. And when I first smelled this fragrance, it kind of reminded me of the 4 years that I spent in Hawaii, because I smelled a lot of plumeria and I smelled a lot of orchids. Now this doesn't have either of those white florals in here, but lily of the valley smells really similar to certain orchids, and tuberose smells a lot like plumeria. But a big difference between tuberose and plumeria is that tuberose is a lot more creamy and soft than plumeria is. Plumeria can be a little bit more fruity and a little bit brighter, I'd say, whereas that creaminess is and smoothness is kind of in tuberose. And you can really notice that in this fragrance. And so for me, my first initial thoughts were, oh, plumeria, but then I kind of noticed that creaminess in it, which I think is super, super nice. This is a smooth floral. It's not like smelling a flower right off a plant. It's really adding like a creamy texture to the floral, which I love. Now, if you're looking for a plumeria scent that smells just like plumeria, then one I recommend is Jo Malone Frangipani Flower. Now, Frangipani, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it's just another name for plumeria. So this smells really good, and this smells just like a real plumeria flower. So that tuberose is really nice because it's nice and creamy, and that really makes it stand out as a more defined, elegant fragrance than just straight up plumeria. And to add on top of that, the last white floral, the orange blossom. Orange blossom has a little bit of kind of like a little tint of honey, I guess you could say, or a little mix, a little spice, a little pinch of honey in there. And so that adds to the creaminess as well. Those white florals just flow really, really well together, and I love the way it smells. So long story short, if you are not a fan of white florals, you will not love Argos Odyssey, The Legend Returns. However, if you like white florals, this fragrance is for you. I think a lot of people will say that this is a feminine fragrance. I think that it's unisex. I think that anyone can wear this. I think guys can definitely rock this. Now, one great thing about this fragrance is I really feel like it can be worn year-round. The brightness of the florals, I think, make it so that you could wear it in summer. I think some people would say it's a little bit too deep for that, but I feel like it's bright enough and the florals are nice enough that you could definitely rock this in summer. But the creaminess of those florals and the kind of hint of woodiness in the base make it so that it could also be a really good fragrance for winter. I think this is a really, really good signature scent, really, really good year-round fragrance, which I like, especially coming from the brand of Argos, because I feel like most of their fragrance are deeper wintertime fragrances. But this one, a good year-rounder. So what about projection and longevity? I feel like the projection and longevity on this is maybe a little bit less than most of Argos's fragrances. I feel like most of their fragrances are really beast mode in terms of longevity. They last a long time, and a lot of them also project a lot. They're gonna be something that is noticed quickly by people when you step in a room. However, I think this one is a little bit more subtle. It is stronger when it comes to florals. I think most floral fragrances aren't this strong. So in terms of florals, pretty strong. But in terms of Argos fragrances, I think it's definitely a little bit less projection and a little bit less longevity. With that being said, the longevity and projection is way, way better than any other floral fragrance that I've had. It lasts a long time, it projects well. So it's not going to be lacking a ton, because let's be real, Argos fragrances are top notch in the projection and longevity department. This is no exception, but just because of the style of the fragrance, it's not as deep as some of his others, which are very winter focused. It will just not last as long as those, but it's still going to last more than most of the fragrances in your collection or mine. So at this point, you know that I am a pretty big fan of Argos Odyssey, The Legend Returns. It's a great fragrance, one of Christian's best in my opinion, and honestly, one of the best in my collection at this point. But I'm a huge fan of white florals, so if you don't like florals, you won't like this. I love this fragrance. I definitely think it's worth the pickup. At least sample it. I personally, if you like white florals, would say it's a super safe blind buy. If you don't like white florals, I'd say just give it a try. It's a great fragrance. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment down below what your favorite Argos fragrance is. Thanks for watching.